Just FYI, everyone, if you leave your mic open, I will mute you, and then I have to manually unmute you. So try not to do that. We'd love to have you guys ask questions towards the back end of this call. But again, I will mute you, unfortunately, if I hear a bunch of background noise. I don't want to, but please pay attention to your mics. Hey, Proto, can you hear us?
Hey, sorry about that. Getting hung up with some
You're
interesting
totally
questions, I
fine.
guess.
You and Chris have a lot to talk about, I'm sure.
You talked for 4 hours today.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's great.
Have you guys been on the call since morning stand-up?
Yep.
Well, I'm
Everyone.
sure he's excited to talk more.
Yeah, yeah. Yes, indeed.
Well, we wait for Chris to come. We'll go ahead and maybe get things rolling. Let's see here. Sorry, let me send one more ping, guys. It'll just be another minute. Proto, did you confirm with Chris if he was coming?
Yes, I think he's coming. Note I
Okay.
will have to run at like 2:30, 2:45, somewhere in there.
No worries at all. I think we've got plenty to talk about, and you being here for any of it would be great because you've been the feedback champion.
Sure. Yeah, it's
Um,
been pretty crazy couple
so
of
we
weeks.
want to we also want to screen share. I'm waiting for Chris to come. I think he's going to be doing that. So I'm just waiting on that, guys, before we really get rolling. That way, you guys can see the game, and we can talk about kind of what your feedback has led to. Super appreciate all of you guys being here and being able to give us that feedback. It's been hugely helpful. Hey, Chris.
Hello. How's it going?
Hey,
Sorry I'm late.
you're totally fine. Hey, Chris. I'm having trouble screen sharing with the application in order for me to be able to record and talk easily. Do you mind sharing?
Sure. Give me a minute so I can use my other computer. I'll be right back.
Yep, no worries. Just out of curiosity, Proto, do you hear the background noise?
Very faint, sort of. I don't think anything
Okay.
worked bad.
Okay, good. Yeah, they're literally just ripping apart the street next to me. So,
Of course.
Okay, I'm back. Can you hear me?
yeah, I can hear you.
All right. Let's see here. What am I sharing?
Yeah, just the game. I think we want to go into maybe some of the feedback that we've received and talk a little bit about the changes that we've made. We can start off first without, you can just leave it on the screen for now, Chris. But, um, you know, thank you guys. This testnet phase 3 has been going wonderfully. You guys have been giving us just incredible feedback, and there have been so many changes that have already been made to improve the client, fix bugs, and just overall make the experience better. We have a long way to go still. The UI in its current state is still going to be changing. That right side outliner bar that you guys are all using, and many of you probably have frustrations with, don't worry. break it's going away. So, before we dive too deeply in here, I just want to maybe give the opportunity for Chris and Proto to maybe share a little bit about, the testnet so far, and then I can dive into maybe a few of the statistics, and then we can hop into questions and, showcasing some of the feedback and what we've changed.
Yeah. I mean, like JP said, I think it's gone incredibly well. We're very, very grateful for all the feedback. It's been great. You know, every time we've done this so far, it's always different when you launch for real and have actual real usage patterns. And so it's really great to get that exposure and get the feedback and really be that much more ready for launch. I mean, it's, ultimately by the time we launch, we'll have launched 4 times already. And so I would expect that it will be much, much smoother than it would otherwise have been. Even if we had gone sort of the traditional, testing route where it's a much smaller group of people who have access, and you're not getting the same sort of, crush of a couple thousand people coming all at once, which I think is hugely important for any multiplayer game to get, and it's usually one of the reasons why you see so many bugs pop up on games like on day one, and rushed patches that fix totally game-breaking issues. I'm very hopeful that given all the participation and the great feedback, we won't have to see that. So thank you all. I think in general, there have been a few hiccups here and there. Cartridge integration was very new for us. We're still working on that. We're going to have, ArginX session wallets in here very shortly. So then there will be an additional option for that kind of minimally intrusive blockchain experience. And then, of course, we are running on the StarkNet testnet. We did manage to take it down again, which is somewhat annoying, but also a little bit of a sense of pride there to help with their own testing of the network as we grow alongside of it. We set some records for the highest steps per second that have been processed on any of the live StarkNet networks. I think at some point we were probably 80 to 90% of every transaction, which is pretty cool. And I think I saw somebody calculate that we're already more than 1% of all the transactions that have already occurred on the StarkNet Gurley network. So all really cool. Participation has been great. We've got, I think, well over 3,000 crews that have been created and people are playing with. I think that represents at least 2,000 individual people, or at least individual wallets. And we've got, just a huge number of lots. I think something like 25 to 30,000 lots have been interacted with, occupied, core sampled. So really exciting to see all the activity and all the various drawings on Adelia Prime as well.
Yeah, it's been a fun trial by fire. I know Proto has been having some late evenings, but I think he's enjoying it. Proto, do you want to share anything?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, boy, if you ask me to go into specifics, I would actually have trouble right now because there's been so many different bugs, features, suggestions, improvements, tweaks, things that you guys have brought up that we have been so appreciatively, thank you guys so much for all this great feedback. It's been, super, super helpful. We've been doing our best to pipeline it straight into our dev flow. Like it's, if we haven't fixed something yet, it probably is because it's just sitting there waiting to be fixed, when we get a chance to do it. I think the client is looking so much sort of cleaner and more usable already, since last week, even like we've, there are bunches of little sort of subtle bugs that I was in there for a week and a half before we even launched and looking for bugs and, found a bunch, but like you guys really strip mined it. You found all, a lot of the much more subtle ones that I just didn't get a chance to test or didn't think to test. And, especially with all the different combinations of tech that you're trying it on, the different, different flows, different assumptions. Play testing is always so much fun for the game devs, such as myself. And, it's just a joy to sort of see you guys actually using this thing as it's meant to be used. As far as big updates, I mean, you've those of you who've been reading the channel or the update and the announcements, like you already know about this. But the heat maps got improved. That was something that we had flagged even before testnet launched. That they were coming in a bit low, and also sometimes like there's so much variation that you would get zero of something that you were supposed to have gotten some of. So yeah, we fixed that with the sort of new floor heat map, and then changing the curve slightly for those heat maps. So that's looking really good. I think we're pretty happy with the statistical sort of numbers that we're getting from those. I've been like running simulations and sort of checking asteroids and seeing like what they actually have on them. So that's looking pretty good, I think. The extraction, yeah, we just fixed that, so the core samples are more competitive now, and they're smaller. Those are looking really good. The core sampling, if you guys haven't tried it to get today, like get in there, like it's a nice new flow. You can see, Marcos is showing all that off
Did
right
you
now.
see this list? How cool is that?
Mm-hmm. Yep. So we moved
Wait,
that.
you can now see your core samples?
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. So there's
You
some
can
major
even
quality
you can
of life.
even start extracting and improve them from this list.
Yep. And we'll keep tweaking this. This is brand new as of yesterday. So, we're just adding things in that sort of seem to fit what people were suggesting or were wanting. And, please give us feedback on those too. We will continue to improve those as we go forward. I think, we're starting to sort of, we're not there yet, but we're starting to sort of get through that backlog of improvements and fixes and tweaks and stuff. And starting to think more about testnet phase 4 at this point, which, like I just said, like Chris and I just were in chats for basically 4 hours today, and just starting to like poke at some of those things that hadn't been poked at quite enough yet, and coming up with launch plans, coming up with different mechanics for ships, for spaceports, for orbits. There's just so many things that still I won't say aren't done yet, but we have been fleshed out to the point have not yet been fleshed out to the point where they're able to be like written into contracts and having UI quite perfectly figured out for. So we're getting there. Where we had a great talk about third-party contracts and what those look like what that flow would be. For getting into creating those contracts and using them in the game and whitelisting. We actually think that might be almost entirely a third-party contract system now, because that lets us sort of not have to think about all the different possible role management systems or permission management systems, and just lets you guys sort of implement whatever you want and have a system there. There's so many things that are coming down the pipe very soon, and that we're starting to think about. And I guess I would just say that any of you who have ideas about anything testnet phase 4 related or current what's currently in the game, like we're still 100% paying attention to everything you're saying and incorporating it as appropriate into our plans. As we've shared before, like this testnet client is going to be available going forward. Like we are going to be pushing changes into it. Maybe not immediately as soon as they're coded, but like we'll be testing it a little bit ourselves. But then pretty soon, like day or two after, like probably you guys will be able to see those changes as they within that amount of time after they're made. So we will be soliciting feedback. Like we've heard, by the way, that we need to be more systematic about announcing changes. So that probably pinging you all so you can see what happened, and or find a change log at least that will tell you what just changed, so you can go and test that and experiment with it. So we'll make sure to upgrade that system. But yeah, I mean, stay in here. Stay tuned. Like there's going to be new stuff very regularly going forward, and all the way up to launch this year.
Yeah. Before we maybe dive into all these new features that Chris can show off and just explain a little bit and why we made those changes, I do want to say I know that many of you guys might still be affected by maybe cartridge not working perfectly for you. We are working closely with them, and we are pushing that along. Right now, they're headed to Tel Aviv for the StarkNet conference. So we're not in. We're not able to push things forward maybe today, tomorrow, but they are actively working on solutions. We understand that many of you guys have had some errors where you're either not able to log in, the deploy contract just takes forever, or you get in game and you initiate the session, and then all of your transactions seem to kind of revert back to that ready state from processing. Both of those we know, and they are being addressed. So still some work to do there, but we're really, really happy with cartridge. I mean, this is brand new tech. This is the first time it's implemented. So there are obviously going to be some kinks to work out, but in the near future, cartridge should be, seamless and allow for
Did Etherway just go silent for everyone?
Yep.
Okay, yeah,
Were
I thought
you,
it was just me.
were you able to hear me at all that time?
You dropped for like
Oh,
5
no, you're
seconds.
back.
Just rewind about 30 seconds, JP.
Oh, I'm not sure exactly where I got cut off. Sorry, I don't know what's going on. Having some system issues, but I just wanted to say basically we know what's going on with cartridge. They are working on it, and the entire system of onboarding and that whole process is going to be refined and fine tuned, and you'll eventually have the ability to just onboard like any other game. And that's I think you've already seen the power of it when it works. It's only going to get better. So maybe Chris, do you want to start with? I think probably the most major thing here is from listing of the buildings, core sampling, and then the abundances, like to be able to find those on your rock. I think that's been vastly improved, and I think a lot of people may not know that's there already.
Yeah, sure. So let's see. I'm gonna go to a different rock because I like the warm colors better. All right, so a lot has been changed and improved about resource maps from the contracts on up. So first thing to know, I mentioned this in testnet chat, but I'm sure not everybody read it or saw it. We have been focused on trying to ensure that the asteroids as a whole are all kind of reaching an average that they should. Basically, if you're looking at all of the lots, they kind of are a random sampling of this underlying heat map. And of course, because they only hit at the center of the lot, they're not always hitting on the bright spots. And in some cases, especially with smaller asteroids, that meant that a lot of times they would miss a lot of the bright spots. And so what we've done is we've added a floor. At the moment, that's half of the asteroid-wide abundance for each resource. So you can see here I have graphite, which is a 9% abundance for this asteroid. And if I take a look at one of these lots in the middle of the dark areas, you'll see they have 4.5%. 4.5% abundance there now. So you could get up to 450 tons. Not a lot, but it's still, what it does is it guarantees that you're going to be able to get some anywhere. And it also brings the expected resource distribution across all the resources on an asteroid to roughly 1, which is what we'd expect. There should be enough based on the abundances that are calculated. So this accomplishes that. One other sort of change that's a little bit difficult to see, but I can try and describe here. The shape of these bands is slightly different now, or I shouldn't say the shape, but the relative thicknesses. Previously, these darker bands would have been wider, and this brighter band would have been larger, would have been smaller. That was due to the way that simplex noise is generated. The distribution isn't flat and linear. What we've done now is adjusted it to be flat and linear, so that we have that predictability, and we're kind of ensuring that the asteroids will have the amount of resources that you'd expect. So that's in a much better spot. Also around resources and core sampling in general is where we've gotten a lot of feedback. Makes sense because that's like the focus of phase 3. There's been a lot of quality of life improvements, including the one I showed you previously, where although it's not all your core samples everywhere yet, you're now getting to see kind of this list of core samples on a particular lot. And this is across resources. So you can see these two are tainite. I'm on the graphite resource map currently, but that doesn't matter. You'll be able to see all of them. And so that way you can really quickly jump onto your extractor, regardless of what you're looking at, go and pick the core sample you care about and get started, whether that's extracting or improving. Also, showing that abundance on the core samples. Not sure how new that is, but it wasn't there previously. It is now. Makes it really easy to see before you click what's going on. What else, JP? What am I missing?
Oh, the select there.
Yeah. Okay, right. So, yes, when you go to core sample now, regardless of where you're coming from, which resource you're coming from, you can now see the relative abundance of all of the resources that are available on the asteroid. So, if you want to see, this was previously surfaced only for the top one, and only if you went into the details of the lot. Now you can see them all. So you can go and pick a different one. If it's really important to you to get Coffinite, even though it is at a much lower abundance than Tanite, you can do that easily without having to go back and switch the resource map. But you will notice that it switches the resource map for you automatically. You can always jump back onto the asteroid to maybe find a better Coffinite spot. So yeah, I mean, a lot of these sort of quality of life improvements. There will be more to come. As Proto mentioned, this whole sidebar is about to go away, to be replaced by a bit more flexible filtering system that's kind of contextual. So if you're looking at the asteroid with resources, you'll see the ability to filter by resources. If you're looking at lots, you'll see your buildings, the various different lots that are available, core samples, and then same deal when you're at the belt. And you're used to probably by now this set of asteroid filters. These are going to be surfaced in a little bit of a different UI that's we think a bit more flexible and easier to use, and also more in keeping with kind of where the UI is going.
Do you want to share some of those wireframes, Chris? I don't know if they're there
I
yet.
could possibly do that.
Yeah, pretty
Also,
appealing looking.
the unpin and pin of the action log. I think some people might not already know that.
Yeah. So this was thank you to Illyrium for the suggestion. You can now get this to collapse. It'll readily collapse before you get out of your way, but you can also pin it and it will stay open as it had been previously. I think the other cool thing, I don't know if you noticed earlier when I ran a transaction, but when one of these changes state, this section will automatically expand for a second or two, just so you can see what's going on, and then it'll collapse again. So really trying to push on keeping this not too intrusive, but also giving you all the information that you need. And yeah, let me dig up some of those wireframes real quick.
Yeah, I was actually just talking to Sergey. He's going to try and come next week, but I think, if we can give them just a sneak peek here at the wireframes, and then maybe Sergey can give them a little bit more of a demo next week in his, design files. I will say, Chris is probably going to mention this too, but, I think a lot of our focus here is how do we make it accessible on a mobile phone and look really good on a desktop? And so a lot of the wireframes that you guys will see, have been built, I think, in a mobile first perspective, which scales up to a desktop really well. Proto and everyone, we've been talking like designing on bigger screens and then going to smaller is very difficult, requires a lot of extra work. Whereas if you do, from smaller to bigger, it's a lot easier to expand. So, that's pretty exciting because I think the more and more we use this game, the more we talk about it, we realize how good of a game this can be for a mobile phone. And that's just, I think going to open up the accessibility for a lot more players in general. Proto or Chris, do you guys want to talk through these or do you want me?
Yeah, I mean, if you want to, you can go for it. I was just looking at chat real quick.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
I can talk
we
to it
want
if
to let you
want.
name everything. Let's name everything.
Yes, name everything. Yeah, if you want to look at sort of what, I mean, I don't want to do Sergey's discussion here too much, but basically we want to surface various different types of information that you might want to have readily to hand in the game, in that sort of right sidebar that we're sort of upgrading. So Sergey has wireframed in like 3 or 4, I guess there's probably one more to the right there, 4 different side panels for different things. Yeah, there we go. So the left one, we have information. So this is basically that window that's currently kind of, the Adalia Prime little window with the orbital elements and the surface area and all that type of information. it's basically turning into this big statistics window that has all the information about whatever you have currently selected. So in system view, for example, which we're looking at here, you can see Adalia Prime is selected and it's got that information. But in asteroid view, you might see information about the particular lot that you have selected. Some of that information is currently in lot view right now, but we would surface that up in asteroid view, so you can just sort of see it as you click around information. It's also got a little bit of flashing there. I don't know, but it's also got some information. It'll link you into the wiki, so you can check out some of that information contextually based on what you want to learn about, say C types or orbital elements or whatever information you need. Even then, potentially as you get down into like a building or get down into even individual resources that are selected, that information panel potentially would provide you information there as well. So a lot of context-sensitive information about what you currently have selected, basically. And if you have nothing selected in system view, you might even see information about Adalia star and the overall belt and sort of broad-level statistics. So a lot of cool information there to be surfaced. Then moving into my assets, this is basically our quick way for you to visualize every one of your assets that are sort of relevant at that zoom level. So in system view, which you can see here, like you care about your active crew, who you currently are playing as. And then your locations or asteroids, basically a list of all of your currently owned asteroids with, you can see the little sub-information underneath each one that shows you what is on that asteroid. So basically your crew, your ships, buildings, types of resources, potentially core samples could be in there too, market orders maybe even. There's a variety of different options. Whoops, we just lost the stream there, Chris. Oh, no, it's back again. So potentially a lot of different pieces of information that could be available there. In my assets, and again, these are scoped to you, so everything that you own, and it's sort of all of the different assets in one view that you own. And this is the system view version. On an asteroid view, you would see one that's appropriate to that. So you might see your crew again, like where they're located on the asteroid. You might see your buildings. This is that little buildings window to some extent that you currently see in our outliner right now, but made a lot more informative, so you might see what's in each building, what their current states are. Like there's a lot of information there that we can surface, but again, it's scoped to you, so you can find all of your stuff easily enough. And then moving quickly through favorites, this is just a way for you to favorite anything. Do you want to favorite an asteroid, a crew, a lot on an asteroid, a building? Like there's any number of things that you might want to just find quickly. And so we're going to offer a way for you to quickly tag those, favorite them, flag them, whatever you want to call it, and then potentially even sort them or color code them so that you can really just easily find whatever you want, in the game. Because we're very aware that currently it's hard to go back and find things, and to keep track of like what they are, what their meaning is, what their context is. So this is a way to sort of improve that and make it a lot easier to find things. In addition to potentially naming things in the future, which I would love to see as much as possible. And then sort of on the far right, we have this is all for system view, so system search. In asteroid view, it'd be more like asteroid search, but this is for system view. So system search, these are the filters. These are the search, filter, and list capabilities that we have. So this is the sort of popped in version. This is the version where you can filter, for example, asteroids. You could filter buildings. You could filter crewmates, in the appropriate view mode. So asteroid or system view. Core samples would be here. Resources potentially would be here. Market orders, like any of the sort of assets that belong to you that you want to be able to search for. You will be able to apply any number of filters to at the same time. Potentially also a search term you could apply. And the important thing is that data is going to be visualized directly in the mode that you're seeing here in the 3D view. So in system view, all those filters are immediately applied to the asteroids as they currently are, but I think probably we'll be sort of toning up the ease of seeing those results as much as we possibly can. So displaying that in the 3D view and system view, or on the asteroid view, displaying all the buildings that you searched for, or the core samples that you searched for, or the crews or ships. Like we really just want to make it as easy as possible to find the information that you're looking for and see it visually displayed on the 3D model, whether that's the system or the asteroid that is currently being visible there. And again, this is like a sidebar. And so I don't know if you have the other one, Chris, where you can see like how the list view pops out from that that one that he was working on.
Yeah, give me a second.
Yeah. You can see underneath all of these, there's like a list view button. So this is what you would see if that list view got popped out, if just can find it.
If everyone's screen is flashing a bunch,
Yeah.
Discord is terrible terrible at streaming this type of stuff. I have no idea why, but apologies. It just does
There we
that.
go. Here we go. All right, so what you see here is basically if you click that little list view button that was under any of those filters, what would happen is that the filters list would be, would start as that sidebar on the right, and it would actually rip off, and then the list would pop out from it. As you can see now, it's this whole dedicated window that has all that information that was currently being displayed like in the 3D view, like the system view or the asteroid view. It's now displayed in list form. So this is basically your spreadsheet headquarters, where you can apply the same filters, all the same data is being shown. These are two exactly isomorphic, ways of seeing that data. They just have, a list view versus a 3D view. And so you'll be able to, have the columns that you can filter, sort by, you can rearrange, you can get, probably some different columns if you need. And you can see here that actually the different assets, the asteroids, the crewmates, the ships, potentially core samples and other things are available in those tabs up at the top, which you can flip through, and you would be able to actually take a look at that list data really quickly and efficiently in this view, and still have those filters be applied. And if you close this again, all the same filters would still be there in 3D view. It's just two different ways of viewing the same thing. So we really just want to make this as clean and intuitive as way as possible to get through what ultimately is a very data heavy game. I mean, there's a lot of information that you sort of need if you have been playing for a while and have a lot of built out infrastructure or built out assets across the belt. So we really want to just give that to you in as pretty and accessible a way as possible. And CSV export, yes, that would be a great idea. We want to make this as accessible as possible. But yeah, I think that's probably the overview of the direction that at least that part of the UI is heading. Like the filters at the right, there will be a lot more in other parts that will sort of surface in due time. And this is still in progress. I mean, Sergey is putting in a ton of work to get these beautiful things that you're looking at right now, and they're just getting better and better as we keep iterating. But that is what you will be able to expect to replace the outliner as it currently exists, in the next while.
Then I'll scroll up for some quick alpha.
Ah, nice. Get small. It gets small. Yeah, we want to build for mobile. I mean, this is a game that could be really well played on a phone during your little moments that you have, like just, oh, I need to go restart my extraction, or oh, I want to go do another core sample. Like that's something we really want to support, and having the UI to do it. Like it probably won't be a beautiful exactly the same experience where you can see the whole asteroid in its full detail and glory. Like it'll be space cramped. Like we'll have to sort of make it designed specifically for that size profile, but we really want to support it. We think it'll open our audience up a whole lot, and we're thinking now to enable us to do that in future. Yep. I probably got to run soon, JP. So if I vanish, that's where.
Yeah, no problem at all. I appreciate you walking us through this. I mean, this is massive, guys. I mean, we want this game to be as approachable as possible for anyone at any time, and I also am excited about thinking about waiting for the bus outside my house to go into downtown. And be like, I'm gonna go take some core samples, or sitting on that bus, and its experience is always going to be more exciting on a desktop. You got a bigger screen, obviously. You can do more. The GPU is more powerful. But that shouldn't mean that you can't have fun on a phone. So really, really happy with this. The changes that have so far been made in client hopefully are making your lives better and easier while playing around with the testnet. And yeah, lots more to come. So I think at this point though, Chris, unless you have anything that you really want to cover, we can just open it up to questions.
Yeah, go for it. I'm just going to keep playing around.
For those who may not have used the questions here, you can either type your questions here in chat. You just go up to the top right and say show chat, and you can type things in there. Or if you have already put questions into like general or testnet chat or wherever else, I'll try and find those. But I got to do some searching.
Oh, just before I go, one tiny little bit of alpha. I was talking to Chris this morning or yesterday, and I know I had mentioned recently that propellant would be made in the shipyard. We changed that to refinery so that you guys can build gas stations more easily. So just a heads up. And with that, I will go to my haircut appointment. Take care, guys.
Good luck. Have fun.
You're saying go long refineries.
Go out. Yeah, Korvac rejoices.
Long refineries, short my hair.
Okay, so let's see here. Question is, a UI focused on taking actions and viewing data sets.
That's just a statement.
Yeah, yeah. It had a question mark.
He answered his own question. Nothing for us.
Well, we wait for maybe some questions. I think some other things that maybe I could call out is just if we look at Adelia Prime, Chris, if you want to go there and just like the amount of people building just buildings and making images from those buildings, I'm extremely. I laugh at this every morning to see what's new. I'm excited to look at it and I laugh at what's been created. This line into the spiral, fantastic job. I don't know who's doing that, but keep it up. The thing here is for anyone who is playing around and new to this game, it's going to be a lot harder to draw pictures when the game launches because materials will be required. However, I am excited to see someone try. So that's definitely fun. Chris, we could share the TTP if we want.
Yeah. For anybody who watches Mythic Quest, if you don't, you should. It's really funny. They have like this time to penis concept. They're like building a expansion and really worried about how quickly people are going to take advantage of this new mechanic. Anyways, ours was just under 100 hours. We actually thought it would be a good bit faster. An interesting stat there to share. Yeah, I think AP will look quite a bit different in reality. The motivations are different, but I will say that like seeing all of this kind of pixel art has certainly gotten us thinking about where we can potentially try and include I don't know, I guess I'll call them like personalization mechanics, where we can expose pieces of the game to add that like individual artistic element. So, be on the lookout for those sorts of things as well as we keep building.
Yeah, Chris, I was almost thinking that like you could color code your lots if you have ownership of particular lots and people could filter by owner. So you could almost like uncover images simply by turning on that filter.
Right.
Oh my god, Gutsy, thank you for posting the sheep.
Who are you and why do you have a camera in my house?
Yeah. We would only be so lucky to have a main like that. Okay, so diving into questions, let's see here. How are the lots ordered? Darius noticed, for instance, one isn't at the top.
That's a
Is
good
this
question.
in the SDK?
So the lots are distributed around the sphere using a Fibonacci spiral or a Fibonacci sphere, or it's referred to in a few different ways, but it's a variation on the Fibonacci algorithm that basically jumps around the sphere in such a way that the points are roughly evenly distributed. Evenly distributing points across the surface of a sphere is actually a very hard problem and not even really a solvable one, except for when you have exactly 2 points. So we sort of did quite a bit of research on that and settled on Fibonacci as the best distribution that we could come across. But one of the features of it is the adjacent lots don't have adjacent numbers, and they do jump around a little bit. So like you'll kind of see 118 next to 2474, like they're not consistently ordered. We're trying to make sure that we have as many tools as possible in place so that doesn't really matter and you're not needing to remember lot numbers. I know there's a bit of jumping around to lots now, but I think as maybe more organic development patterns arise, when there's actually the economic constraints of building for real, I think it'll be a bit less of a concern because you're going to be looking for proximity. And so when you're extracting and it's showing you those list of warehouses that are accessible, ordered by how close they are. Like that's the sort of important data that you'll need and typically use.
Interesting question there about why the number one isn't like close to the pole though. It's like sort of offset by a bit. I've seen a lot of Fibonacci spirals on spheres, and they tend to have them at the poles to be offset that intentionally.
I'll have to look, but it may be the case that our I don't quite recall how we generate the axis, but it might be that the axis is generated after the Fibonacci poles.
Oh, interesting.
So unless you
Okay, so
have
it's like
like
a
a
rotation
zero on its inclination, on its local inclination, it will be offset.
I see. So like the number one might actually be at like the sidereal, like north, but it's not actually the
Right.
axis. Interesting.
Right.
That makes
Exactly.
sense.
We've got another question in the Games Questions channel. It's about kind of the referral and recruitment bit of our tokenomics doc, and just maybe to try and get some more information about what that might look like. We haven't really released any proper documentation or information about this, but the intent behind it is essentially recruit friends. If they buy crewmates or asteroids, then you're going to earn some sway. So, if they come in now and they happen to pick some things up, there might be, Chris, I don't know if you want to comment on this or if it's too early, but I'm not sure if we're backtracking it to like now if you're using that referral link, or if we're going to be, mostly opening it up towards launch.
You want the referral link that's currently on mainnet?
Yeah, the one you can get into. Yeah, exactly.
I mean, by all means, send it out. If the person comes back at the time that there's asteroids or crewmates to buy, and buys at that time with your referral link still in their local storage, sure, it'll absolutely count. But there's also a decent chance that their local storage is cleared between now and then.
Yeah, I should also say that the intent is for people purchasing assets directly from kind of that primary sale and crew purchasing. So we're probably not going to be looking at secondary market trading. That's community run, and I think it would be in poor taste for us to kind of put that in there, because I think there's a lot of gameability. You could sell things to yourself back and forth a bunch, and we would have no idea. So again, I think just to answer that briefly is yes, there will be a recruitment drive towards launch, and it will be for primary assets. And if your friends, family, or internet followers buy assets in the game, you will earn sway. Looking for more questions here. Let's see here. There's something Snack TR is wondering about. We can turn the planet clockwise by holding the planet in the middle and moving the mouse counterclockwise. I wonder how we can explain this mathematically.
I'm not sure how to answer that.
Yeah, I am not a math wizard either, or understand why that exactly happens, but I do notice that you can kind of get the asteroid to face the camera a different way if you hold your mouse and shuffle it around a bit.
I think the answer might have sort of to do with precession. I won't get any more into it than that.
Do you mean like turning it upside down? I guess I'm not sure I understand the question.
So, Chris, do the steering wheel thing just a bunch and watch what happens to the asteroid's orientation over time.
Yeah, we have 6 degrees of freedom, and that's why we have this
No, but
now.
like, notice that the axis rotates. Like you're holding a single point on the asteroid, but it's slowly processing as you keep doing it. So there's just like a net torque that not a torque, but a net rotation that's applied. Anyway, it's a good nerd type question.
We do now have the ability to write yourself, though.
That was a huge feature when we
So
got
a question from Star Wars Freak is there any known reason why a touchpad scroll behavior behaves differently than a scroll wheel?
How is it behaving differently?
Looks like more slowly. So I think a touchpad scroll would be slower than his scroll wheel.
For zooming in and out?
Correct.
Yeah, I've noticed that sometimes. Maybe we can.
I think the reason is that scroll wheels are quantized, so they have like little tick points that you go through, whereas with the mouse pad, like it's very smooth, and you can actually set that in settings. I think in your system, like how sensitive it is. But you may also mess up your browsing experience elsewhere if you do that. So, yeah.
For clarification, my scroll wheel is normalized to my touchpad,
Interesting.
so it's not the OS level. Yeah.
Well, it's definitely something that we could just expose in settings, if that's helpful.
Let's see here. Questions. All right, I don't see any new questions quite yet. I'm kind of checking a bunch of different channels. So, also, guys, you can unmute yourself and ask questions. If you can't unmute yourself, it's because you had your mic on and I muted you. So, just feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions.
So Korvac is asking about hydrogen compression, so that it's easier to store and ship. Liquid hydrogen is actually pretty much the densest you can get it when you liquefy it, and that's still 14 times, 14 cubic meters per.
Hydrogen
Absurd.
sucks.
Like hydrogen sucks when that's all there is to it.
Could you just have an ever expanding balloon attached to your warehouse and just keep filling it up?
Yeah, I mean, the balloon ships, huh? Yeah. I mean, I think we've been talking about like sort of a potential tank farm adaptation of the warehouse in Discovery that would be easier to be volume optimized rather than mass optimized like the current warehouse is. That's for later.
Yeah, I saw one point brought up just that because hydrogen takes so much room to store, that it could hamper the ability to provide ship fuel across the belt, simply because smaller asteroids would have a hard time upkeeping it if they need multiple warehouses full.
Yeah, I mean, an interesting observation is that the light transport fuel capacity or propellant capacity, I think you can store about 3 of those in a single warehouse currently. So a small rock would be basically just a gas station for small ships. Like you couldn't, you'd have to build a lot of warehouses if you really wanted to like service a heavy transport or something. But the potential is there if you actually wanted to like build a spaceport and actually have like say heavy transports being used as tank storage. That's sort of a slightly hacky way to get about doing that if you really want to have a huge propellant operation. That may be what you're doing on Patagon there, Korvac.
Basically, the just-in-time semis that roll up to the gas station.
Yep. We ship it straight to the ships and send it straight out as soon as you need it.
Yeah, the volume of gases of the volatiles in general is definitely going to be a logistical challenge.
We originally discussed actually like allowing the tanks in the propellant tanks to potentially carry some sort of cargoes other than just propellant. We might want to seriously consider that, but at some point.
Yeah, I think that's likely.
Well, guys, I don't see any more questions. Again, if you guys want to unmute yourself, you're more than welcome to. Otherwise, we'll close out here in a few minutes if I don't see any more.
Chris, do you want to talk a little bit about like Adalian versus Ethereum sway? I thought that was pretty interesting.
Yeah. I mean, that's very, very alpha.
Very alpha, but interesting.
Yeah, so we're chatting a little bit about the idea potentially of in a very seamless way having 2 different assets, one sort of sway in game versus sway out of game, maybe similar to sort of like wrapped ether in that sense. And it would potentially do a few really valuable things, at least in the US. I think it would definitively fit within the IRS's exemption for in-game assets and the sandbox that creates. So there would be likely a lot fewer questions around, I'm playing this game and buying stuff. Do I have to actually like file my taxes on a gain I made on a batch of Tainite or whatever. And then there's some additional simplifications that it may allow with the Sway fee model in general. Might actually allow us to reduce the average fee in general by applying that Sway fee not just to marketplaces but to other areas of the economy as well, and thereby allow us to kind of drop that rate across the board. So it's definitely an early conversation, but something that we're going to start experimenting with, how we might make that a clearer line between in-game and out-of-game Sway. And yeah, Proto, if you have anything else, feel free.
Yeah, I mean, that was the main point. Just, we've been going back and forth a bunch on this sort of line between like what is an asset that is tradable outside of the game versus an asset that is tradable inside of the game. Like as a ship, can you trade it, on the Starknet version of OpenSea, or is that only within the game? Like, what about? I mean, obviously, crews and asteroids will be tradable on whatever that is. And I think where we're kind of starting to settle on is that. All assets, at some point, maybe not for exploitation launch, but all assets will be tradable one way or another in the game, potentially in that sort of Adalian internal Sway. And some assets, like the asteroids, like crews, like crewmates, maybe like ships, will be tradable outside of the game in Ether or the external ethereal Sway. So there's sort of there'll be that distinction, but I think the hope is it would be really nice if everything were tradable one way or another inside the game. But there's going to be that distinction from the two different types of Sway, like wrapped, unwrapped, sort of internal, external. Yeah, just super early alpha stuff that we're just sharing with you guys because we're thinking about it at the moment. We've got a question about Form 8949 for American tax filings. I think you are going to have to bump that up a level to your overall crypto taxes. Whatever you're doing for that, Coinly or whatever you're using. Figure out how the game applies, and keep in mind that we are intending that everything that's internal fit within that exemption that it's already been explicit. That's more of an American tax question, so I'll spare you guys the nitty gritty.
Yes. We love to make it complicated. But to be specific, IRS does have an exemption for in-game assets, sandboxed in-game assets that use an in-game currency. So we are trying to do our best to fall within that, to eliminate probably the last thing anybody really wants to think about when they're playing a game, which is your taxes.
Yep. This is not Tax Simulator. Snipetier has a good question about combined heat maps. It's like seeing more than one resource at a time. And I was already answering them in chat earlier, but so maybe Chris, do you want to take that one so they get a different perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's certainly something that's come up. We've tried to so far help answer the question that usually encourages that as a solution, which is that you can now see sort of a slice through all of the different resources on each lot by taking a look at that drop down. But it may still be the case that we will try and find a way to allow for sort of additive or subtractive resource maps as well. It's an evolving iterative process for sure, and we're continuing to listen to and incorporate feedback.
Cool. And Darius is asking about ideas, plans for future UI systems. I think that would really have to be, a question for Sergey.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, absolutely. There's a ton. There's a ton of UI.
Yeah, I'm not sure exactly how robust it'll be at launch, but I think we do plan to have kind of a design guide that supports, a lot of the assets within our game, so you can more easily use them for like third-party tools and things like that. I think there's it's always a little scary using something that might look completely different. So to lower that barrier, I think would be fantastic. Although it's a lot of work to put together whole design systems and provide that. So I don't think it's high up on the list of things to do prior to launch. So before we close out, I just want to remind everyone, test to earn goes till February 10th. Right now, I think about 80 million of the 200 million sway have been acquired or earned. And then we also have the creator competition. So for anyone who wants to maybe showcase influence, we would absolutely love that. And you guys can post it to your socials, YouTube, wherever it is. I see people posting TikTok, Twitter, YouTube, and we just want to make sure that you guys have the opportunity to create content for influence and be rewarded for that. We're also going to be trying to funnel a lot of those creators into kind of a private group to help them get up to speed during, a little bit before launches and releases, so that they have the ability to kind of create content that can be posted during releases rather than long after, just because it takes time to kind of learn these mechanics. So I'm going to be providing kind of some private support there. So all you got to do is create some content and show some interest, and we'll make sure to get you in there.
Sure. We've got a question from Nathrax about the farm. I think we did, in fact, share a picture of it. You guys might have to hunt around a little bit in Discord search, but there was a picture that we got shared of that like a month or two ago. It looks really cool. It's a really cool building. As far as production chains, there's sort of two questions about that. I currently am going to be getting back to that shortly. I've been sort of distracted by testnet launch and collecting you guys' feedback, but the current status of that is working through the recipes for a number of, specifically the refinery processes. Oh, no, actually, that's a good, Chris, do we want to share the update about production chains? We might want to share that one now. Yeah, it's so I'll be working on recipes. But the big change that I think some of you here in particular might be excited about is that we are leaning strongly, like nothing's final until launch, but we are leaning strongly at this time towards allowing multiple outputs for the refinery specifically. So some of these chemical processes, like for example, hydrolysis of water, like currently the old model was that you would pick one or the other. You'd pick either hydrogen or oxygen, and that's all you get. You have to throw away the other of the two things. And for a number of reasons, just highly related to balancing, but just also sort of in terms of, gameplay, other gameplay reasons, like we're thinking that it will be better to have multiple outputs. And the way that we are going to preserve the interesting decision that you would have to make when choosing an output in the former model, the single output model, is that when you choose an output, you have to choose when you choose a process, you have to pick a primary output. So what is the actual main output that you want, and you'll get that at a much closer to the full amount out of that. And then the other secondary outputs you will get out at some lower level, like maybe 50% or something. So there's still a very important strategic decision to be made there about which output you want. And in fact, like when you're going into the refinery and selecting what you want to make, that's sort of the workflow is like, what product do you want to make? Like you'll pick that, and that will be the primary product for that process. And then there'll be a couple of secondaries. And if you want, you could switch to a different one of those secondaries, but the primary is the one that you would search for and be choosing. But this helps a lot, specifically with trace materials. Like, so, you might be like getting gold in some small fraction out of, I guess platinum is a good example, like platinum out of uraninite. Like that's how we have it coming. So currently in the old model, like if you wanted to get platinum, you'd have to throw away all of the other uraninite and just get the very small, like, 0.1% or whatever platinum out of it. And so that really means that, like a lot of uraninite mining would be dominated by platinum, not by the actual fissile uses, which are supposed to be the main use. And so by doing this, we will allow you to make use of multiples of those outputs at once. And hopefully the balance will be a lot closer to sort of reality, real life, where that's what you do, is you get these sort of smaller, less economical outputs as a side product of the major ones. And that's how you get them typically. And it doesn't make it twice as expensive to produce that thing for two different purposes. So we're in the process of straightening that out and figuring out, sort of what changes, if any, we need to make here and there. But a lot of the production chains are already in shape to support that. The contracts are mostly in shape to support that. So it shouldn't be too huge of a change. But I know that some of you guys have been asking after that and wanting that, and I, on some level was agreeing with you. And I think, we looked at it enough and decided that that's the way we currently want to go. Again, not completely final, but that's where we're at. So, yep, there's the update there.
Well, I think with that, we're right at our hour mark. Thank you guys for coming. Really, really happy with how testnet phase 3 has been going. Continue to go play, have some fun. If you have any issues, let us know. We want to make sure that all the bugs are found and we can
All of them.
ensure stability. Yeah,
That's a joke.
You should see the list that Proto has already put together.
You never find all the bugs.
We're gonna do it. We'll do it. But yeah, thanks guys. Have a great day, evening, afternoon, whatever it might be for you. And drop into general chat or ping us wherever we're easily accessible, as most of you already know.
Yep, and thank you all so much. The testnet has been fantastic. I've been having a great time. So, care.
Thank you all.
Thank you.